Now, I'm not a big reader, nor do I pronunciate things like the scholars, but sometimes I draw on my nostalgic past, and this week was such the case. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. No, I'm not thinking of the big V8s from the good old days or the two-door coupes that made head turns, but instead just a little folktale referred to as the little engine that could, because, well, what lies beneath that hood, well, might just fit that storyline. This week's offering can pretty much go without naming. Brand recognition from about every angle. See the profile? It's emblazoned in all of our heads, but just in case you have not been paying attention, this is the 2020 Ford Mustang. But what turned heads this week wasn't the iconic vehicle itself. The profile, even the Velocity Blue, wasn't to blame, nor the venting on the hood. What really drew people's attention was the smallest point, this emblazoned on the side, and that's where this folktale began. The little engine that could, well, might just lie right there under the hood. Now, if you think back to the little engine that could, the folktale, it was about a small engine, albeit blue, that was tasked with pulling a broke down bigger train up a mountain. This after many other trains refused to do the task because they didn't think they can. Thankfully, the smaller engine stepped in, pulled the train up the hill, the whole time repeating, I think I can, I think I can, and certainly it handled the job. That just happened to be what we did this week. What we did this week is head west in North Carolina to a small town called Mount Airy, aka Mayberry. If you're familiar with that, it's the good old Andy Griffith show where it was, well, derived from. Andy Griffith growing up there and certainly basing the show primarily on his childhood. This vehicle, well, it was tasked with heading west. Now, what we did is we went up a few mountains, and certainly I think I can, well, didn't play out in this folktale, but this blue engine certainly had the power to deliver. For this folktale, things are a little bit different compared to the little engine that could, because, well, everyone looks at this vehicle and says, well, yes, it can. This really setting the tone, first off with the nameplate and the exterior bravado. Strong lines that, well, define its muscular stance. Wide stance, nice beefy tires, and, well, this sculpted hood that has the venting and the raised lines, really setting the tone that, well, this vehicle will deliver. The only time the handbrake was pulled on this storyline was when people dived in a little bit closer at this nameplate on the side, when they expect to see maybe GT or V8 and they see something called 2.3 liter, well, then they start to go, well, maybe you can't. So during this week-long test drive, this folktale began to take shape. People starting to look past the beefy facade and getting down to the heart of the matter. Instead of seeing GT or V8 or anything turbo-powered on the side, instead they saw more minuscule numbers. That's when they began to go, well, can this vehicle truly deliver? So the knocking on the window, the rolling it down, and, well, hey, what's up with this ride? It was only after they asked those questions and, well, I tapped a little bit on the gas, is that when they began to take notice. Now, once you get the quad pipes a singing, people start to, well, start believing. And, well, I don't mean to rhyme, but sometimes it's just the right time. And, well, I'll stop all of that and get to the point, which is, well, this vehicle can deliver. Now, don't get me wrong. What you're seeing here on the hood is, well, already out, specifically the 2.3 liter inline four-cylinder turbocharged EcoBoost. But, well, this one's the high performance edition. Now, while the extra performance doesn't equate to a huge, much more neck-snapping fun, it does, well, take things up just a hair. Comparably, 310 horses on the standard model, 330 horsepower here on the high performance. As for torque, pretty much equal 350 on both models. But what I like is, well, it makes the non-believers, well, see a different side of things. Now, some other numbers to think about really is the size of this vehicle. Definitely, well, taking up some room. It's no slouch or no compact offering. Bigger is better when it comes to my coupes. Now, what we have here is about a wheelbase around about 107 inches. Overall length, 188. As for height, about 54 inches, which for my over 6 foot tall frame makes it a typical back bending affair. One last big number to think about is width, and with the mirrors pushing nearly 82 inches. So I like the fact that this is always a substantial coupe, even though maybe you don't think it is because of what's under the hood. Now at the four corners, you have 265 40s wrapping a 19-inch wheel. You also notice about a 3-inch wider track here at the back end. Now this vehicle was a true weekend warrior, handling 2 full-size adults in the front and our 4-legged friend here in the back. Now the design does indicate 4 individuals, though I'd argue the legroom's going to be a little compromised, and I'll show you that in just a second. So it is more of a traditional 2+2 design. Now talking about design here at the back end, nice stylized rear tail lights like we've seen over the last several years, glossy accent, and this implied rear spoiler on the back that couples nicely with the darkened rims. Now talking about other features, safety, backup camera, backup sensors. But for a weekend warrior vehicle with the size that this one is, this is where a coupe truly shines, handles the people and their cargo. Even more so was the ability to get golf clubs here in the back. It all begins with looking inside. First off, the electronic release for the rear trunk down below, not where you think it is, but that's okay. Right here, pops up with ease. What you're going to notice is around about 11.4 cubic feet of space, very cavernous, but what you're going to see are these outer niches, really pushing these inner walls about as far as they can go. That pretty much means when you go to do your golf bag, you're going to tuck it in about as far back as it can go here, and the golf club heads will just pass this area and slide in with ease. Now I didn't try more than one, but about in a pinch you could angle just a hair to probably get 2 in here pretty much with ease. When it comes to guerrilla warfare, sometimes I point to one individual facet that really sets the tone, but here on the Mustang, it's the full package that really makes for an aggressive front end. First off, the sloping of the hood, the sculpting, the venting up top, the tones of dark and accent, glossy appointments, body color, all coming together. Even this broad sweeping grille that at first glance looks chrome-esque, but also darkened like we see again at the four corners. Lower fascia sweeping out, nice rubberized material. Again, around the lower third all the way around, helps kind of minimize the scrapes and dings, especially considering ground clearance, well, it's quite low. So that means staying away from the curves because this is a touchy point. Lastly is headlight design. This one really getting aggressive. Nice horizontal, almost piercing to the inner portion. Nice stylizing there on the inner side. And of course, a nice cylinder shape taking the overall look. Climbing inside the Ford Mustang, I lowered my expectations. After all, 2.3 liter inline 4-cylinder, how much can this bad boy do? But then I remembered it's got a turbocharger. It's got the high performance insignia, and then, well, it has these gauges. Well, then it has even cooler gauges over here. Good old digital readout tach and speedometer, and tons of information in the middle. So then I started hunting around a little bit more, and well, I looked down here and it's got these toggle switches, one for the steering, but well, this one over here. So well, I began to change it, and well, so did my digital readout from normal mode to Sport Plus to track to even, well, drag strip. Then I started to think, well, could this little engine really be able to do it? So then I said, well, let's just stomp the gas and see what happens. So if you know me and you've watched my shows, you know, well, I really don't hit the drag strip, but just seeing this gauge cluster here rev up with just a tap of the gas and want you to get to that red mark, well, I so badly just want to hit the strip. But then my wife in the passenger side said, you better not. Either way, I started to enjoy this vehicle and all the RPMs and thrusts that it wants to throw at you. Getting past all the RPM excitement, then I started to look at the infotainment. After all, this weekend warrior had a few hours ahead of it, so we had to at least, well, enjoy the entertainment. First off, this huge oversized screen, really easy to use with the shortcuts down below. Does have a home screen that's going to be more split up. It allows you to get lots of information, but again, you can go full screen if you need it. Now, we did use the navigation. That does help instead of using your phone, because I like the map to be here versus on your phone or through the Bluetooth. Now, down below, we do have symmetric when it comes to the knob, tune select, and minimal buttons in here. And that's one thing you're seeing across the board, is just minimalizing all the buttons and putting everything really under the touchscreen system. One thing that does have a few buttons is the climate control. First off, with the toggling, which relates to the temperature, obviously dual zones up front. Fan speed, again, Not a big fan when it comes to this push button. Very difficult to see while you're driving, reaching down, trying to find that. Again, I do prefer the knob. It's just a little bit more touch friendly. The modes all the way around, again, real easy to use. Now, while the dash is minimalizing the buttons, one area that is not, well, possibly the steering wheel. First off, entertainment over here on the left, over here on the right, obviously relating to the digital readout there between the gauge cluster, cruise control on the left as well, and some other buttons for your entertainment. What I do like, of course, is all the buttons are backlit. One thing I've found is on other vehicles, the cruise control, even down here on a toggle, just not illuminated. So this setup works really well. For front seat legroom, you're going to find decent acreage, around about 45 inches for the average size driver. That means the front seats can be slid forward to accommodate better legroom in the back, because once your backseat drivers get back there, they're going to find cramped spaces. Now, what you're going to see on average is about 29 inches, which I also notice is individualized attention for the backseat drivers, really sculpted seating. But when it comes to legroom, really cramped spaces. So the best you can hope for is that the front seat occupants are vertically challenged, so the seats do slide forward, or worst case, do crisscross applesauce. Now, for this particular model, when it comes to changing this seat position, you do have a manual up and down. That's going to give you a lift on the seat. Now, one thing we did find is this isn't on the passenger side, so they did feel somewhat dwarfed, a little bit low. This, at least for the driver, can crank you up and down. Right here is for changing the position of the seat back. Now, if you do want to fold the seat forward, that is positioned way here on the back with a handle in the back of the center. Pull on it and it will slide it forward. One thing I did notice, most of the time that will also slide the seat, but in this case, nope, it just slides only the seat back. Now, that does it for this folktale, or well, edition of Road Warrior, and our little engine that could, because as always for our Mustangs, we believe they can, we know they can, but sometimes we question when we see a little bit of smaller power. But thankfully that smaller power comes with a turbocharger and, well, a high performance insignia that reminds us, well, Ford knows what they're doing. Not to mention the quad pipes, well, that definitely remind us, well, step out of the way. And as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.